Hey, it's Andrew here at BTO Range in Conroe, Texas. And today on the bench we have a little pistol from the 80s and 90s. This particular gun is 1992, which to me is not old, but according to the front counter staff, anything made with the 19 in front of it is old. So I don't know that I agree with that, but it is what it is. This is the Intratec TEC-DC9 version or a later version of the KG9, KG99. So a little history of this gun. It's got some legal ramifications. It's got some infamous connections to some high-profile events that happened during its production, and it's got some ties to current firearms being manufactured now. So to start at the beginning, the primary designer of this gun was a man named George Kellgren, K-E-L-L-G-R-E-N, George Kellgren. And that name may sound familiar to you because he's still in the firearms business today in Florida with a well-known gun manufacturing company called KelTec. That's George Kellgren. Kellgren was the primary designer behind this gun when he was still in Sweden. So George Kellgren he's Swedish born. He was a gun designer for Husqvarna and also for a company called Interdynamics AB, a Swedish company. And they designed a gun called the MP9. It was a submachine gun, full auto. And they designed it with an eye towards selling it to governmental agencies or militaries, basically. South African, whoever would buy it. And really, they didn't get a whole lot of traction with that. So in 1979, they figure out, hey, United States is the biggest gun market anywhere. So Kellgren moves to the United States, and they form a U.S. subsidiary of Interdynamics called Interdynamics USA with a man named Carlos Garcia. So they develop a semi-automatic version, basically, of the MP9 submachine gun without the forward grip and obviously, with semi-automatic fire control group. And they call it the KG9. And that gun still fired from the open bolt. Now, we did a video sometime back. I have to look back and see when we did it. But we had a RPB, basically a MAC-10 open bolt semi-auto pistol. And we did a little video on that gun talking about how the open bolt design, ATF had a problem with it because it was relatively easily converted to a machine gun. And they started showing up on crime scenes and being seized by law enforcement in the mid 1980s, or early 1980s rather. And the same thing occurred with the KG9. The KG9 open bolt gun, they started seeing them show up as converted, basically illegal machine guns. And in 1982, January of 82, ATF says that's a machine gun. That open bolt gun's a machine gun. You can't, if you make any more after this date, I think it was January 17th of 82, if you make any more after this date, they're machine guns. Guns prior to that date, only about 2,500 of them, give or take, the open bolt semi-auto KG9 were still allowed to be as a pistol, unless, of course, somebody modified them, right? So those open bolt KG9s are rare, only 2,500 of them. They bring a fairly substantial price on the collector market. They are collected. There are versions of this pistol that are collectible. So in 1982, when it becomes obvious that ATF's not going to put up with the open bolt thing, they redesigned it with a floating firing pin firing from a closed bolt. A couple other small changes. They renamed the gun to be a KG99. They added a 9. So the KG99, the closed bolt version, we see that gun come about 82 with a couple of variants. They had the mini variant, which was a shorter barrel with no shroud, still threaded. The KG99 Sport, which was the mini with no threads. And then the KG99 SS, the stainless steel variant. And some of those are really rare. The SS, the stainless steel variant, very few of those were made. Those tend to bring a little bit of money on the collector market. The KG Sport, the KG Minis, they're all a little bit more desirable to people that collect this particular type of firearm. So everything is going along okay, and then George Kellgren leaves Interdynamic, and he's going to go on to do Grendel Firearms and then ultimately KelTec. So he sells his share of Interdynamic to Garcia, and Garcia renames it Intratec. And they basically renamed the gun by August of 1985. The guns are renamed to the TEC-9, and the Mini becomes a TEC-9M, and we have the TEC-9 SS for the stainless gun, and then a TEC-9 Mini stainless. And again, those stainless guns are super rare. I say super rare, they're at least very uncommon, if not rare, and tend to be the ones to watch out for if you're buying these for value, right? So not very long after that Intratec designation, they make a significant change, and that involves the back end of this gun, and we'll get a still photo of that. The back end of this gun is threaded, and it has a metal end cap in it. Prior to that, everything was held in place by the polymer frame, and the problem they were having on those early KG99 variants and the very, very, very first TEC-9s was the use of anything other than 115 grain ammunition, either plus P ammo or 124s, would eventually damage the frame and there'd be a problem. So basically, if you're going to buy the gun to shoot, if you have the threaded rear of the receiver tube with a metal end cap, you can shoot 115s, 124s. Jury's kind of out on plus Ps. I don't really see the need to run plus Ps in this 115 grain plus Ps. I don't see the need to do it, but it'll run other than standard 115s. If you don't have that threaded end cap basically on the back of this receiver tube, you should limit the firing to standard 115 grain ball ammunition, nothing plus P or no heavier bullets, just to preserve the integrity of the frame. So continuing on through the 80s, we see prices start to go up. The cost of machining, the cost of making the gun, even though it's an inexpensive gun to produce, the costs start going up. So, and we start to see some corners getting cut maybe, and every effort being made to keep the price low. And then we start seeing the guns show up because in the 80s, really super high capacity guns, 30 round mag guns, 32 round mag guns. You had pistols like the 92 Beretta, the Glock 17, maybe 20 round mags were about what you would get. But this, you got 30 rounds in it for less money than the Glock. So that appealed to a certain class of people that were out committing crimes, and whether it was dope dealers or smugglers or whatever you want to call it, we start seeing the guns show up at disproportionate numbers in ATF traces and police seizures and things like that. So it develops a reputation, and it's going to be, you're going to see it in shows like Miami Vice. It became kind of like if you thought about, hey, what guns are the cocaine smugglers using, everybody would think MAC-10 and KG-9. So it kind of became almost a meme, if memes existed back then, I guess. So to the point where in 1989, by then the guns are involved in some high-profile shootings. There was one at a law office in San Francisco, and it starts getting on legislative radars, particularly in places like California and the District of Columbia. And in 1989, California passes the Roberti Roos, R-O-O-S, I guess it's Roos, Roberti Roos assault weapons ban. So this is before the federal assault weapons ban of 94. California did it in 89, and it names the TEC-9 by name as a banned firearm. It's one of the models. There were some 50 odd models listed by name, and that was one of them. So they decide we're going to ban this. It's not available, and then other jurisdictions started following suit. We see the District of Columbia do it as well. So the easy way around that for Garcia and Intratec was just change the name. If the TEC-9 is the band model, we're going to now call it the TEC-DC9. Now it's not a band model anymore, and they're able to sell it, right? And then there's two different schools of thought here. There's one school of thought says the DC stands for designated California or along that line. Then there's another group that says District of Columbia, because there was also a band there. Speaking about abbreviations, the KG part comes from the two original partners, Kellgren and Garcia, became KG-9. So, and then Kellgren left, and we're back where we are. So that's continuing on. And then in 1994, the federal assault weapons ban basically mirrors that California ban, spreads it across all 50 states. So another change is made. They delete some of the features that put the gun into the assault weapon ban category, such as the threaded barrel and the shroud, and they call it the AB10 for after ban 10. With 10-round magazines, and that was the latest iteration, or the assault ban friendly iteration of the pistol, so they could continue selling it. So they were fairly creative. It's kind of like legal whack-a-mole. They would come up with a legislation, and then the manufacturer would figure a way around it, and then they come up with the legislation to fix that, and then that's the same thing that goes on in this industry forever. I mean, not just this gun, but on many other guns. So probably the most high-profile, terrible incident that this gun's been involved in was the Columbine school shooting. One of the shooters in that horrific incident used one of these, and that certainly didn't help public perception of the family, the KG-9, TEC-9 family at all. Plus, all the OG, you may have figured out that I probably don't know a whole lot of gangster rap, but my understanding from folks that do is that the TEC-9 is heavily featured in a lot of the lyrics of that type of stuff, also in the videos. And Intratec themselves, Garcia themselves, when they were advertising this gun, they really hit it hard with the advertising images that they produced didn't help them in the legal realm of things. There was even a pinup calendar and all kind of interesting stuff. There's one, and this is a little controversial about how this actually went down. When they developed, they started using gun coat as a metal finish on the guns, and Garcia or their ad guy or their marketing guy or whatever was saying that this finish on the gun helps protect the finish against oils and things like that. And a reporter said, so it would be helpful in reducing fingerprints. And the ad guy or whoever it was from Intratec said, well, yeah, because oils, and they didn't get the rest of the sentence. They stopped at yeah. And it's even published in court documents that Intratec was advertising it as being resistant to fingerprints, and therefore they were marketing the gun to the criminal element. So I mean, that's the kind of idiocy that went on with that, and that's not just this gun thing. It's happened in other places. You can think Bushmaster too. That's how Bushmaster got sued. It's not because product liability on the gun, it's because of the advertising. That's how they were able to get the case going in Connecticut and all that. So that's a thing, and it didn't help them. It's ultimately probably not what put them out. Intratec went out of business and filed for bankruptcy in 2001, but I think that was probably just technology making better firearms in that price range that could do what this gun could do, and have a better product. So I think obviously there were lawsuits, but I think it was more technology. So let's take a look at this gun in particular, and the reason why we believe it to be 1992. Part of the change when they went to the DC9 was they changed the location of the sling swivel. The sling swivels on the original guns, KG-9, KG-99, were right here. The DC9 actually ended up with a single sling swivel point, 1-point sling kind of thing, back here on the back. So the name change, according to some of the legal filings and legal court cases that I've seen pertaining to lawsuits against this gun, the name change to the DC-9 was effective January 17 of 92, but the sling swivels didn't get moved until April 23 of 93. Now, whether that's 100% true or not, I don't know. That's what the court documents say in this lawsuit that was against Intratec. So this is marked as a DC-9, but the sling swivels are in the original location, so it's safe to assume this is one of the 36,000 guns made in 1992. So that's how we came to that conclusion. So how do you evaluate the gun? Well, it's the same thing we always talk about: originality, scarcity, and condition. Originality, as long as it hasn't been modified with a threaded barrel or non-threaded barrel being threaded. In other words, if you have a sport with a threaded barrel or something that's not right. Now, these threads are coarse threads. They're designed to fit the same thread pattern as the Max suppressor, the guns that fit on the Max series, or the suppressors that fit on the Max series of guns. So if you have one of these threaded half 28, it's been altered. So that may cause a problem with collectibility. Any Cerakoting, things of that nature may affect the collectibility of the gun to the diehard collectors. So scarcity we've talked about. This is a very common configuration of this kind of standard TEC DC9. But once you start talking about the minis, once you start talking about the stainless steel guns, there are some variants of that gun where probably less than 100 were made. And if you find one of those guns, then the asking price goes up. So where does it go up to? These guns vary wildly in what they bring. A standard, and this gun is exceptionally clean. It's in exceptionally nice condition as far as the exterior finish, and I doubt it's been fired very much. Probably in that 500-ish range, 5 to maybe 6, because we've got the original box and all that. But they're not that expensive. The open bolt gun is well over $1,000. There's only 2,500 of those in a legal open bolt semi-auto. So the open bolt version of that gun is well over 1,000. And then you may find somebody, if you find the stainless gun or the stainless mini or some of those super small variants, niche variants, they may creep up to that $1,000 mark as well. So what are some of the features of this gun? There's not many, to be honest with you. It's a super simple gun. It was even simpler as an open bolt because there's no separate firing pin. So there is a safety on the gun, such as it is, and that's simply pushing the charging handle into the side of the gun. That locks the action. You have to open it back up and then run it back, and there's not a bolt hold open. On the open bolt guns, you come back and up into a notch, and it'll hold the bolt to the rear. And then when you bring the cocking handle back down, it stays on the sear, and then you pull the trigger, the bolt flies forward. So on a closed bolt gun, it doesn't do that. It's just the controls, and here's your mag release. That sums up the controls of the TEC DC9. And we're not going to disassemble this gun because we have to drive a pin. I don't have the tools here. But removing this cross pin right here will allow you to remove the top half of the gun. Now, if you have the older gun that doesn't have the threaded in base plate, when you remove the top half of the gun, you're going to get the bolt springs, and then you can, just kind of sticking out the back, and you can bring the bolt out. On this gun, once you bring it out, there's a threaded slot in this end piece that you unthread, and then you can bring the bolt to the rear, pull this out of this hole, or pull the bolt handle out of this hole right here, and remove the bolt out the rear. And that's pretty much the field strip procedure for the gun. It reassembles in the reverse order. So it's super easy to maintain. Parts are out there on the used market. Springs are being remade. That's easy. But the parts are there. Should you buy one? Yeah. I mean, if the Miami Vice kind of era is your thing, and there's no reason why it shouldn't be, you would need one of these next to the MAC-10, next to the Mini Uzi semi-auto to kind of complete your collection of that, or a Bren 10, right? If you're doing the Miami Vice thing, a Bren 10 pistol. So it's a viable gun. It's one that doesn't break the bank to buy. They're getting scarcer to find in really nice condition. Though they're the ones, a lot of those that we see are really beat up. I imagine if this gun were really completely scratched up, we could take it apart and we would Cerakote this black, a matte black, and it would be a fairly legitimate little gun. So anyway, well, I was going to say the KG9, but it's not. It's a TEC-DC9 is what this gun is from 1992. So, hey, if you like what we're doing, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, leave us a comment if you have a favorite Miami Vice memory, or if you've had one of these KG9 variants before and what you thought about it. I've shot them before. I can't hit anything with them. I'm not 100% sure that's the point, but let us know what you think about the variants of the KG9 or the TEC-9, and we will definitely see you on the next one.